What up, Whisper Nation? Big Travie here with you, as advertised, going live with our good friend, Stepmom Lauren. We're going to be talking about RB and even some wide receiver names to remember in this year's draft, some later guys in those past those later rounds. Just want to say what's up, and Stepmom Lauren has joined us, so let's dive right in. As always, you guys can YouTube. The link is in the bio for our YouTube channel, so please go and click that and subscribe today. There she is. Welcome in. Hi, Stepmom Lauren.
Woo!
Oh, go Blues, baby.
Go Blues.
As not someone who's really in the know on hockey, how's that series going?
Stressful.
Yeah.
Very stressful.
Well,
yeah,
it doesn't look like it's
out.
taking your toll on you at all. You look
Oh my
great.
gosh, thank you.
Yeah.
It's a hair. I didn't even do my hair. Look at this. I'm just like, nah. But I do have a lot of makeup on just to hide like the bags that were under my eyes. Like I can't. Oh my gosh, and it's incredibly intense. It's so intense. I can't. I don't even know how to describe it. If you're not a hockey fan, you will still love it because the action is nonstop. They're just beating each other up, which is so awesome about hockey. Like literally, they almost try to kill each other on the ice. It's wonderful.
Well, we thank you for jumping on here today. We're excited to talk a little bit about some guys you mentioned in your brand new article, which was published today for the Fantasy Footballers. That is over at thefantasyfootballers.com. So please, everybody go check that out. And basically, you have 3 running back names to remember in drafts, and we're going to go through each one of those. I also want to talk about that particular ADP, talk about a couple guys in there. But I wanted to open it up and get the Whisper Nation over to that article for one. And then also, we have some questions that the Whisper Nation submitted.
Yay!
So let's discuss.
I love questions.
Yeah. So our first one comes from JWH93. He says Kyler Murray. That's who he wants us to talk about as one of these later round guys, as somebody to remember. And so I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about this because today David Johnson's talking about his conditioning, saying that he really worked on that because they want to run 90 to 95 total plays this year. So I guess if they are going to be able to, first of all, it's a big step. This was a team that was really bad last year. The offensive line has a lot of issues. It's a brand new coach, a rookie QB. Let's not get ahead of ourselves like this is going to be turnaround overnight. But I wanted to ask you, are you considering Kyler Murray as one of those late-round league-winning stashes this year?
Absolutely. I would not be surprised if Kyler Murray does not – Murray. Sorry, Whisper Nation. My mind is a little like goo at the moment. It's been one of those weeks. So if I mess up when I'm saying something, feel free to correct me. It's probably going to happen. So Kyler Murray apparently is his new name. Murray, hashtag. Yeah, well, I would not be surprised if he ends up in the top 10 because of the environment that he's in, because he does have the weapons around him. I really do like him, and he is a late-round stash. He reminds me so much of Pat Mahomes. It's hard not to make those comparisons. Again, we never know. You never, ever know. Right. But I do like Kyler Murray a lot. Murray, I did it again.
That's all right. That's all right. That's okay. I mean, Murray, we don't blame you too much. It's understandable. Okay, so I tend to agree with you there. I want to see some more of how this team meshes, especially they have a lot of young wide receivers they brought in. I think they drafted at least 2 rookies, maybe more wide receivers. So that'll be important, how they build that chemistry in the offseason. But listen, they have a lot of pieces here in Larry Fitzgerald, Christian Kirk with another year, and, of course, your boy David Johnson, who got the hype talking today a little bit. I'm excited about that offense. It's definitely one of the more exciting ones. So,
and Kyler Murray is also a very smart quarterback, too. He knows when to slide. He knows when to just play for the next down. And he has someone, like we said, like Larry Fitzgerald. He's got Larry Johnson. And I'm not 100% sold on the wide receiving core, but I am sold on Kyler Murray because he does have that safety net like David Johnson that he can just kind of dump it off to. I think there's a lot of potential there for him.
All right, some of our fans in Whisper Nation have jumped on. Matt Chewy 8 says Fantasy Whispers. What's up, brother? Carpenter B 2100 says thumbs up. I think we might know that guy, right? And then Chad Yoho says, yo, what's going on, Chad, my brother?
Good on, Chad.
So our next question comes from D Schumacher 26. Wants to talk Dante Moncrief as the number 2 wide receiver at the moment for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I thought I was going crazy there for a minute, Stepmom Lauren, because I was on a podcast a couple weeks ago with our guy, Draft Room Pod. He'll actually have the next question we answer. But I was talking to him here, and, Moncrief is a touchdown guy. He's got history with Andrew Luck making big plays. So I thought I was going a little bit crazy thinking that Moncrief could have some play in this offense. I don't think so. Whisper Nation is backing me up here. What say you about Donte Moncrief maybe being the guy instead of a James Washington to step up as the number 2 in that role?
That is so funny that you bring this up because I am currently working on my next article for the Fantasy Footballers covering their ultimate draft kit. And one of the names we bring up is Donte Moncrief because of his history, just like you said, with those deep plays. And looking at Juju Smith-Schuster, who obviously is kind of like the inherent supposed to become that wide receiver 1, but where he is most explosive and where he is most consistent is actually on his short routes. Not those deep threats where he, like Matt Harmon says in his reception perception, also an exclusive for the UDK for the Fantasy Footballers, just throwing that out there. But Matt Harmon, the fantasy darling that we all know and love, who's now with Yahoo Fantasy Sports, he puts this together and it's absolutely amazing. And Juju doesn't really have that great ability to create separation when it comes to intermediate and deep routes. And that's really where Antonio Brown excelled.
Right.
He excels at everything. He's Antonio Brown. I mean, for crying out loud.
Let's be real here. 15 touchdowns are vacating that offense from last year.
Yeah.
I mean, that is an insane amount of touchdowns. So not saying they'll obviously get all of those back, but that's a lot of touchdowns, a lot of plays to be made. And they all can't possibly mathematically go to Juju Smith-Schuster.
Exactly. And so a lot of Juju Smith-Schuster's production comes within I think 71% of them were like inside the 10 or something. I don't know. You have to look it up. I have it in my article. So when it comes out,
there we go. Nice teaser.
Spoiler.
Professional
but
teaser
right
there.
I know, right there. So, but those deep plays really is where Moncrief is going to step up and excel. And he has a veteran presence. He's not a rookie. He knows what he's doing. And I think if they can get that chemistry with Ben Roethlisberger, I mean, he can definitely be a threat when it comes to those downfield, long, explosive plays that Juju Smith-Schuster just doesn't have that ability yet. Not that he won't, but that he hasn't really shown yet in that offense. So I love Donte Moncrief because you can get him at a great value.
Extremely great value. And that offense should continue to do what it's done for the last 5 years, and that's huck the ball around the field a lot. And so whether it's James Washington or Moncrief, and we'll see a lot of beat writers come out with that information as the offseason progresses, but that's an interesting take. So we want to thank D. Shoemaker for that one. And then my last question from the Whisper Nation was Draft Room Pod. We just mentioned him a bit ago. He brought up a bunch of players for us to talk about, but one I wanted to pull out because of some of the news today was Damian Williams. So Damian Williams got a big vote of confidence from his offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy, today, because Eric Bieniemy said emphatically, this is our starter, and we expect him to excel as the starter. And so I just wanted to throw that out there because I don't know about you, Stepmom Lauren, but I was kind of getting tired of hearing the Carlos Hyde murmurs and the things of that nature. And for me, I have to just come back here and say, look, in 17 seasons, Andy Reid has produced 3 top 5 backs, 6 top 10 backs, 1 top 15 back, and 4 top 20 backs. That's 14 of those 17 seasons where at least his running back has been an RB2 or better, and 9 seasons of an RB1 or better, or RB1. So I feel like it's a no-brainer here to know what Andy Reid loves to do with his running backs, and Damian Williams shouldn't get any doubt anymore here going forward. A lot of people want to say he's going to fall off the cliff, but he handled not only the last, month or so of the season for the Chiefs, but he also handled all the playoff.
Yeah.
And they played in a couple playoff games there, and he excelled in those games too. So, do you have any concerns for Damian Williams, or are you kind of rolling with me on this one? Or
I am so on the fence about this because the Chiefs' offense is kind of in this weird limbo area. Every time I hear Damian Williams, I'm like, nah. Yeah, I don't have that excitement. But when you actually, like you did, you break down the numbers, it's like, oh, okay. But, I mean, if they don't have Tyreek Hill, there's so many different pieces that go into this. I am only excited about him at the right price. There's no way I'm going to reach for him. There's no way I'm getting overly excited. Too much Missouri Show Me State in there. But like you said, he has shown it. I'm not sure, but he is one of those names that can fall to you in the draft. And if you already have your number one starters, that are going to be there, there's nothing wrong with picking him up if that fits your draft strategy for sure. Another thing also to remember that as much as Andy Reid has produced some wonderful running backs, he also forgets they exist sometimes too. So that is always going to be a concern when you have a running back under Andy Reid's offense.
Yeah, I'm looking at him in the third round, and I'm saying if this guy's more statistically than not going to give me RB2 to RB1 numbers, I feel pretty safe about it if I'm stuck there on some other weird picks in the third round. I like Damian Williams. He's going to give all the opportunity. They didn't do much in the draft to kind of come in and challenge him, and Carlos Hyde will be on his fourth team in how many years?
Right.
For me, I'm okay with Damian Williams for now until something proves otherwise.
Yeah, I agree.
But some of the guys I wanted to get into here, you wrote this article, 3 running back names to remember. I loved it. I ate it up. It was a beautiful article. We appreciate the work you do.
Thank you.
Oh, and speaking of friends here, Sports Outliers just joined us.
Mark.
We want to say what's up to them. That's for sure. So we'll start off with your first guy in that article, and that's Kenyon Drake, ADP at 506. I wanted to let you run with your boy Drake here because I have an interesting take on this. As a previous last year owner of Kenyon Drake, who then traded him away, I got a little spicy. You've now written about him twice, been on a couple shows about him. Break it down for the Whisper Nation one more time on Kenyon Drake for us.
I know. Now I'm afraid because I've planted my flag so deeply into the mountain that is Kenyon Drake. Now everything is going to fall apart, but I don't care. I'm sticking with it.
You got to go with it.
I really do. I love Kenyon Drake this year, and it's all about that opportunity because he is such an explosive player. And we all know that he's explosive in the pass game. I mean, he was the second leading receiver on the Miami Dolphins behind Danny Amendola. And Danny Amendola had, I think, 59 receptions. Kenyon Drake had 53. So it's not like this is a huge gap. I mean, he obviously leads in that pass-catching role, but he was usurped by Frank Gore, who took those line from scrimmage, ground and pound plays. And you know what? Also, Adam Gase, I can't stress this enough. Adam Gase phased him out of the run game. He played meaning Kenyon Drake, played 52% of the snaps, and yet he only had 37 percentage of carry plays. He's a running back, and he's talented. And I actually have a graph that I've used kind of several times now because I talk about him all the time. But you can take a look. Yeah, you can take a look at when he was incorporated into the run game. You can look about where his numbers finished. And you can see that he is talented enough to take that role. And now that Adam Gase is gone, Brian Flores is in. If he sticks to his statements and his guns about what he's saying, giving these running backs and all of his players the opportunity to take that role, his competition is going to be, Kalen Ballage, and it's going to be Myles Gaskin. And those are talented players, but they're not Drake talented, in my opinion. So if he can really just grab the bull by the horns with that chip he has on his shoulder that he's all upset about, he can really make some fantasy magic happen, which he has done in the past. Now he has a chance to be able to do it consistently. Yeah,
I mean, listen, I drank the Drake Kool-Aid last year for sure.
It's hard not to.
I prescribed when he's on the field, and you talked about the stats, the receiving ability, the prowess he's got there. I just feel like Draft Room Pod actually talks about how he's a Tevin Coleman, only a little bit better. He feels like he's a better version of Tevin Coleman.
Yes.
And so I like that comp a lot. My problem is that we haven't really seen what Kalen Ballage can do. And I saw this guy in college. We forget about him because he got buried on the depth chart behind Frank Gore and Kenyon Drake. But Kalen Ballage scored 8 touchdowns against Patrick Mahomes and the Texas Tech Raiders in that game for ASU, 8 touchdowns. And one of those was a receiving touchdown. He actually has some prowess in the receiving game as well. This dude is a stud. He's 6'3", 228. He's a converted wide receiver hybrid type of guy. So we definitely like what he brings to the table. He ran a 4.5 40. I could see this, and you look at those ties to New England by Flores and by Chad O'Shea, and you're looking at, are they going to try and model what they do there with a stable of backs? And I kind of think that when it's all said and done, you may see Kalen Ballage as the LeGarrette Blount goal line pounder, thumper in this offense with a little bit of wide receiving. And then you could see Kenyon Drake as a James White almost kind of hybrid. And I could see that happening here, which in this case, for this roster right now this year, it does make Drake the more intriguing player because I don't see Miami in a ton of games where they're controlling the game script. Right? So you're going to see, Kenyon Drake's floor probably stays up. But I'm just wondering, do we skip Drake, take a guy like James White, who's around that same ADP, or Tariq Cohen on better offenses, or do we like Drake enough right now? You seem to be setting that flag in, and more power to you. I'm still a little hesitant after last year. I know we preach about not being able, being able to put the past behind you.
I know. I don't blame you at all because I'm bitter too. I totally get it. I know a lot of friends who had Kenyon Drake are very bitter, but just like you said, they may not be, relying on that run game all that much because they're not going to be winning games. Well, guess what? Like I said, Kenyon Drake was still the second leading receiver on that team.
Exactly.
So if you're in a PPR format, he is going to be dynamite for you. Right. And there's a different scheme that is going on right now completely as opposed to what he had last year with, like I said, I keep harping on this, but with Adam Gase, now there's Brian Flores. Very little evidence to see what we're going to do, but just like you said, they may use a bevy of backs, but he has really emerged in that pass-catching role. So in the middle of the 5th round, if you are not needing to fulfill other needs and you want to take one, Kenyon Drake is going to be a steal, and I think he's going to do very well. But you brought up Kalen Ballage, which is another thing to understand, too, is that when all of these changes are happening. So Kenyon Drake has all this potential. So does Kalen Ballage.
Right.
And that is another one that is a sleeper that you can get late because I think he's getting drafted. His ADP at half PPR is like the 14th round.
That's correct.
You can
it's the
literally,
14th.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can pick up his handcuff or you can pick up his star running back that everyone is going to be scrambling on the waiver wire to go pick up because he's now suddenly fulfilling that Frank Gore role. For me, especially in PPR, that's usually what I play. It's pretty hard to move away from Kenyon Drake at his ADP. If he starts skyrocketing, then it's a little too expensive for me.
And it might be a little tougher to move, it might be tougher to move away from Kenyon Drake, as you said, unless we're hearing a lot of word on Kalen Ballage, like exploding.
Hi, Adam Rank.
Exploding in camp. Yeah, what's up, Adam Rank? Thanks for joining, guys. Also, we had Jay Beeler ask a question here, so we'll just kind of pivot there. Thoughts on the upsides of Hakeem Butler and Andy Isabella? So we talked a little bit about the Arizona wide receivers at the top of the show here when we talked about Kyler Murray, right? And so because of all these weapons, we believe it's a benefit for Kyler Murray. But historically in the NFL, rookie wide receivers do not do well, especially in the first year. So their upside is huge. I think in Dynasty, especially Hakeem Butler, he's a guy I'm very fond of, makes a lot of great, spectacular catches. Big-bodied guy, so I really like Hakeem Butler. And Andy Isabella could be good as well. The Arizona offense, I'm just going to reiterate, very exciting, especially for dynasty purposes across the board.
Yes. I'm not this year. I'm good. Just like you said, historically, Wookie wide receivers. Hey, Chewbacca, here I am. My dog's name is Chewie. What's up? But historically, they don't, perform as well as I think that we would like when we draft them. I don't know. If you want to take a dart at it, I mean, go ahead. It's going to be really late in the rounds. But like you said, for Dynasty, hold on to those guys too, because there is not a ton of potential there, especially with a quarterback like Kyler Murray. So for me this year in like a redraft and standard leagues,
from a regime change in Arizona to a regime change in Seattle, which happened last year when they brought in Schottenheimer, the Seattle Seahawks changed from Russell Wilson was our leading rusher, as you alluded to in your article, to we're going to run the ball pretty much more than anybody in the NFL. They were second in rush attempts with 534, first in rushing yards with 2,560, and fifth in yards per attempt with 4.9. So, I'll let you take this over a little bit, Stepmom Lauren, but you kind of explained why don't sleep on Rashad Penny in the 7th round at 709 because of how much this team is now committed to the run.
Yes. And it's Rashad Penny. I know. Like, just hearing the name is kind of like, it kind of gets you angry a little bit because if you did take him last year, it was so disappointing. But one of the things you have to remember, too, and Kate and Michelle from the Ball Blast pod, they are, like, just spectacular girls.
Yeah, great.
Follow
Subscribe,
their podcast.
Ball
They're
Blast.
Great.
Love
them. Michelle, I believe, is the one that really likes Rashad Penny. And she brought up a really good point, is that Penny got hurt in preseason. So he hurt his finger. He was out. Now, Mike Davis and Chris Carson were taking all these reps, and they really just usurped the role. And then when Penny came back, he just didn't look to be that speedy running back that they were looking for in this, like, dynamic duo of a running back game. And it was kind of like, meh. but that's not who he is. And I believe in my article, I do bring up some college stats from him. If not, I'll send them to you. Just let me know. Or you can look it up. There's a thing called Google. It's very powerful. But, I mean, he does have this opportunity. Again, there's that opportunity because Mike Davis is now in Chicago. Rank, you can put in how you feel about that. And Chris Carson has a litany of injury concerns. And he, for only being 2 years in the NFL, he's injured quite a bit. And now it's his knee. So Pete Carroll did say that he had some work done. I guess he got it scoped and cleaned out. But guess what? Now we have this flip side story where, Rashad Penny is the one who is taking those first team snaps. He's the one who's, going to be emerging and usurping that role possibly away from Chris Carson, which does not take away from how talented Chris Carson is. But this is a chance. It's his second year in the NFL, a little bit more mature. Hopefully he's working on his weaknesses in the offseason, but that opportunity is there for him to really, really make a statement in the NFL. And again, he's going in the middle of the 7th round.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like you're taking him super early. Even as a handcuff, he's still valuable. Very valuable.
And I think that is one of the few backfields in the NFL where you can get away with drafting both the running backs, right? Because of how much they run. So, yes, you take Carson
Hold on,
earlier.
my hair's driving me nuts. Sorry.
Here we go.
I can't handle it. It's a day. It's a day, I told you. Mine's like
Chris Carson, you draft early. Then you swoop up Rashad Penny here, and why not? You talk about opportunity in this article. I love it. You break down the percentages that they got their team's carries in here, and you talk about that Mike Davis role, okay? So even if Penny only moved from the 16% that you mapped out from last year to the 36%, which was Mike Davis's, if he moves from 16 to 36, that 36% of the 524 carries would have been 192. Okay, and that would have been just enough for 18th in attempts. And that's around guys like who? Alvin Kamara, Marlon Mack, guys that finished very well as RBs in, obviously Kamara and even Mack who missed time. I love that you laid out that opportunity. It's really showing people, and I hope it shows Whisper Nation, that Rashad Penny is worth the risk, especially in the 7th.
And is there risk in the 7th for that?
Right.
I mean,
especially not with the upside there. I mean, you're talking about a guy who can be, RB2 on most weeks and an RB1 upside on a lot of weeks if he takes over as the lead guy. Yeah. Another guy that's interesting in the 7th, I just wanted to bring up from a personal standpoint, and that is Robbie Anderson. So shifting gears to a wide receiver here, I'm really excited about Robbie Anderson, especially in PPR. Year 2 of Sam Darnold. Obviously, say what you will about Adam Gase, but he gets the most out of players, even when he shouldn't. As far as on offensive side of the ball, you see him use all sorts of trickeration with his wide receivers. Last year, in the last 5 weeks of the season, Robbie Anderson was the PPR wide receiver 10. I believe the fantasy footballers were just talking a little bit about Robbie Anderson. I'm excited about what this guy can bring. He's an explosive talent, and my big thing is he's in a contract year. So that's always ends up being pretty big, especially for wide receivers. You have any thoughts there on Robbie Anderson, Stepmom Moore?
I agree. Those are my thoughts.
There we go.
And just like you said, with Sam Darnold coming into his second year with Adam Gase, as much as I dislike Adam Gase within the context of how he used Kenyon Drake, which is probably, I don't know, maybe the only player he really didn't use very well. Who knows? But in that context, he is like, quote, the quarterback whisperer, as he has been monikered. I like it. I really like it.
Well, he's the wannabe quarterback whisperer. I like Bruce Arians as the real quarterback.
Who doesn't like Bruce Arians? What a stud.
Yeah.
But and then also in Matt Harmon's reception perception, they do bring out the ability to create separation for Robbie Anderson, and he is one of those explosive talents on the Jets that really can break out, and people sleep on him. And that is something to definitely keep in mind when you're going through your drafts and see where he's falling, because that has potential to fill in a really nice flex spot, especially if you're in a 3-stacked wide receiver, type lineup. I mean, he can be killer, really killer, especially with those deep threat plays.
Speaking of falling asleep here, right? M84 asks, will Daniel Jones get any playing time this year? No offense, but that Giants offense putting me to sleep a little bit. We're going from Eli Manning to Daniel Jones. We were asking if Daniel Jones gets playing time. Is it going to matter between the two? Like, they're kind of looking.
He hates the Giants.
Oh,
I'll let you know.
Yeah.
He hates the Giants.
Yeah. So yes,
he will see playing time. I give it like week 3.
Okay.
They're gonna be down by whatever. I don't even know who they're playing. I should have actually had those stats before I just regurgitated that. But they're gonna be down. Eli's gonna have like a hurt finger, and they're gonna throw Daniel Jones in there to the Sharks and just see like how much he bleeds. I don't know, but yeah, he'll see playing time. I think. Is he gonna be productive with any of it? With someone like Saquon, possibly a little bit, but nothing really fantasy relevant. But I don't know. I might laugh a little bit. That
Eddie,
whole offense is a mess except for
yeah.
Saquon Barkley. And Sterling Shepard has some promise. Evan Ingram, I get it, but whew.
Saquon and nothing else.
Good luck, David Gettleman.
Although Sterling Shepard, you brought up Sterling Shepard, and that's a good late round guy that you're looking at.
Yeah.
Kid just to excel. There's a lot of dink and dunk stuff there. Eddie _Perez05 asks us 10 or 12 man league. This is kind of your preference. I love 12. See, Stepmom Lauren's going to come in with 10. I think for you, for me, it's personal preference. If you can get 12 committed people, that's when it's really good. If you got to stick with 10 because you can only get 10 committed people, I agree that 10 is the way to rock and roll. But I love 12. I love the challenge it presents for sure.
Nah, I do. Okay, so I like both of them. I mean, as long as it doesn't go past 12, then it just kind of becomes it. But you have to make sure, again, and Adam Rank brings this up a lot, you have to know your league.
Yep.
So you have to know how many, bench spots that you have. You do have injured reserve spots. So I personally really enjoy 10-team leagues because even if you're drafting late, you still have really good options when you're, especially in a snake draft. You're coming in at the end of the first round, and then you've got the beginning of the second round. There's a lot of stuff there. Now, in one league that I'm in, Mike and my husband Jeff are in this one. We have a stacked, big bench. So there's very little trades that go on. So it just depends on what it is that you want to play, how it is that you feel. We hardly make any trades in that league whatsoever because we'll just pick up random people on the waiver wire, then stash like 40 of them on our bench. That I'm exaggerating. That's not the actual number. But I am in also 2 other 12-team leagues. And it's just as fun. It's more challenging. Just like you said, you really have to kind of dig into those numbers. But it's really, like you said, it's a personal preference. For me, it's 10.
And don't worry, Stepmom Lauren and the Fantasy Whispers will be getting you prepped all year, no matter what league you play. We got the facts for everything. So moving on to your last guy in the article here, last guy we'll get a little bit diving into is Royce Freeman at 807. This one is interesting. You're backing up your article earlier in the year about Philip Lindsay being a potential bust candidate by saying Royce Freeman is a guy people should be targeting in the 8th because you believe that the injury that Philip Lindsay is coming back from will cause Royce Freeman to get a majority of the – I mean, you don't believe this. This is a fact. He will get the majority of the first-team reps while Lindsay is out. And so is that enough to hold Lindsay off? As a guy that watched Lindsay just become an absolute star last year, and a lot of the Whisper Nation will be the same, how are you talking us off the ledge from drafting Lindsay so high?
Well, that's the whole thing. It's going to be very hard not to because it hurt my soul when I wrote about him being a potential bust. I didn't like it. It looks like I'm eating that little smiley face. But it like hurt my soul. And it also hurts my soul he was such a unicorn in the NFL fantasy world. And I like unicorns. I want them around. I think they're so magical and lovely. So this kind of sucks. But if you look at the facts of what's going on now, like you said, Royce Freeman is getting those first-team reps. He's getting the practice with a new quarterback. So we have a new quarterback in there. There's also a new head coach and a new offensive coordinator. They may not have those same, like, all Denver ties to Philip Lindsay like we saw in the previous regime. There's no timetable on his injury. So let's say, in a perfect world, he's 100% healthy, ready to go back. He's still going to be a little bit behind Royce Freeman. And I think he was a 3rd-round draft pick. So while that's not a 1st-round draft pick, there still does need to be a little bit of justification as to why you went ahead in a 3rd round to pick a running back that only saw 131 carries the entire season. So why did you draft him so high if you're not going to use him? And there's going to have to be a little bit of evidence there to prove why he was taken where he was. But honestly, I don't know if Lindsay's going to be 100% to start the season. So at literally middle of the 8th round, you can get somebody that is possibly going to be the RB1. I mean, why not? And it just stinks for Philip Lindsay because, like I said, I love magical things and fairies and unicorns and
Yeah,
Pegasus wings. And it stinks because I love Philip Lindsay. But the
I think
environment, the facts, everything just kind of shows that he's not going to be an explosive back that he was before. And let's say he is completely healthy, he's going to be primarily, I think, in the pass catching role if his wrist or his hand, I can't remember what his injuries to, heals up. I still think Roy Freeman is going to be that line from scrimmage back like he was meant to be.
And, Freeman has chops in the receiving game as well. And so, he was a complete back throughout college in that aspect as well. And so when you talk about, them using this draft capital on Freeman, well, Lindsay wasn't drafted. And so Lindsay came in after the fact. Lindsay is this hometown guy. He's got all the hoopla about being from Denver and going to high school there and going to school there. And so I think that will buy him a lot of good favor, plus the year he had last year. I think this will have, Johnny likes to say this could be a poor man's Atlanta, where you have a 1A and a 1B here. I don't know that I trust Denver to have that good of an offense next year under Joe Flacco, but we'll see how that plays out.
But maybe under Drew Lock.
Maybe.
My boy.
Maybe.
See that tiger right there? And
there we go.
Oh, you can't. Yeah, that Missouri sign right over there. Yeah, maybe my boy Drew Lock's going to step up and suddenly it will be.
Drew Lock. Have you seen these reports of Joe Flacco telling Drew Lock or telling the media it's not his job to groom Drew Lock and screw Drew Lock? I just feel like Drew Lock's that kid trying to hang out with Joe in the locker room, and Joe's like, "Piss off, man."
I really don't think Drew Lock cares, to be completely honest. I think Joe Flacco cares. That's why he's coming out and being like, no. I bet Drew Lock's like, whatever, dude. You're like 85. I give you another year, and then you're out. Yeah, I don't think he cares.
You'll be in a wheelchair next week, so don't worry about it.
So, Matt, MM Hegedus asks, is Fartwater Manatees the greatest fantasy football name ever? No, it sucks.
No, that's not. Oh.
At fantasy football.
Oh, damn.
He's in my league.
Coming in hard with the trash.
So we live in Florida, and we have a lot of manatees, and I know they're like, they're sea cows, okay? So when they poop and fart in the water, it's really, really gross. They're really not as majestic as everyone thinks they are, and he thought it would be the greatest fantasy football name to name himself the Fartwater Manatees, although he did win our league last year.
So he doesn't suck at fantasy football, and maybe
I'm just saying he does.
And maybe that is the greatest name ever.
You have a friend now, Matt. You're welcome.
I might tail him in that name this year.
It is pretty clever. It's funny. Especially if you meet him. He's a big dude. No offense.
So in that 8th round, we talk about Royce Freeman a little bit. We'll see what happens there. In that 8th round, though, right now, currently, is going Darrell Henderson, who is a guy in our back-to-back mock drafts that we've done, and actually the last 3, which you guys can all find on YouTube, the Fantasy Whisperers. We're doing a bunch of mock drafts coming out with them weekly. People love to see those. I've been taking Darrell Henderson consistently from the 8th to 10th round, 8 through 10 rounds, 8, 9, and 10, sorry. Because, correct me if I'm wrong here, Stepmom Lauren, Darrell Henderson is an absolute league winner if Todd Gurley goes down. And in my opinion, Darrell Henderson, I watched his tape. He was the most exciting running back to me. He looked so explosive coming out of college. And as long as there is one running back there, and if you're going to bet on the Todd Gurley going down, I think this is a perfect stash that can just come on and win you your league this year if you take him.
Yeah, I agree. And it's not an if when Todd Gurley goes down. I think it's going to be a when he goes down. And I will be totally honest with you. Come draft season, Darrell Henderson is going to be going in the 5th round. I would be shocked if he falls to the 8th.
He's already moved up.
Yeah,
when we were mocking, it was the 12th.
Yeah, you can't draft Todd Gurley without taking Darrell Henderson. And the rest of your league mates are going to know this, and they're going to be reaching for him simply because they know you're going to want him. He is going to be one of those players that, let's say, could possibly be a huge bust because you took him so high on the off chance, or maybe the majority chance, that Todd Gurley doesn't see, all weeks of play. You never know. There is so many questions regarding that knee injury. I mean, but he has arthritis. It's not going away, like you had mentioned. It's not curable. So they're going to be lightening his workload if they want to keep him healthy and keep him on the field for all, 17 weeks. But, I would be shocked if he falls to the 8th round, and I would not be surprised if he goes as high as the 5th or 6th round.
Well, I agree 100%. I just see this guy as a stud, and eventually we're going to be talking as maybe a second first round pick going forward once Todd Gurley is gone from this team, because Darrell Henderson has the chops to be everything Sean McVay loves in a running back.
Yes.
Speaking of love, we love you, Stepmom Lauren. We really appreciate you coming on with us today. It was so much fun. We know you had a rough and busy week. We did as well. And we're happy we could make it work.
Just busy.
Yeah, that happens. So everybody, you guys can find Stepmom Lauren Whisper Nation over at Stepmom Lauren across all platforms. That's YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, at Stepmom Lauren. She writes for Fake Pigskin, the Fantasy Footballers, and she'll be writing for us a little bit this year as well. And she's got a brand new article coming out. She has a brand new article released today. We've got links to that everywhere. Thank you so much, and thank you, Whisper Nation. We're out of here.
Thank you, guys. Love you.
Peace.